The Rams 2025 schedule is out, and we have everything you need to know. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do me a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, join the party, trying to get to 18,000 subscribers. Also, what is your reaction to the Rams schedule? My name is Doug McCain. Friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 Sports, Dodgers Nation, SI. I also do NFL radio for Westwood One. Today I'm flying solo, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. He's out for a graduation. He'll be back early next week. We've got a jam-packed show, though. The schedule is officially out, and we are diving into it. And the first thing that I look at when I see this schedule is a favorable start to the schedule. The first month of the season, the Rams have a real opportunity to get off to a strong start. You open up the season against the Houston Texans on September 7th, and Houston, definitely a solid team for sure. CJ Stroud and company continuing to emerge, but it's at home on CBS at SoFi Stadium. You have to feel good about that. And then in week 2, you go to Tennessee to take on the Titans, another game on CBS. And the Titans, they're a team that they're far from a Super Bowl. You should absolutely think of a 2-0 start there. And then week 3, that's the toughest matchup in the first 3 games. That's the toughest matchup in the first 5 games. You take on the defending Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's on the road. It's at the Link, and it's a game where it's not even going to be a measuring stick game because it's so early on in the season. I think it's more of an opportunity game. I mean, you got an Eagles team hoping for a Super Bowl hangover. They've got some moving parts there. The Rams, I think, though, have a improved roster that has guys that played big in those games that are continuing to emerge. Guys like Jared Verse, Kobe Turner, Byron Young. And then you got Devontae Adams and Matthew Stafford fresh early on in the season. Kyron Williams fresh early on in the season. So, yes, it's going to be a tough game. The Rams will be road underdogs for sure. But I also think they have a chance. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you go into Philly last year and it's snowing and you're 13 yards away from beating the Eagles, having the surprise win the playoffs last season. So I absolutely like that as an early game just to kind of see where they're at, but not judging them solely on whether they win or lose that game. But it is definitely a good test early on just to get an idea about where this roster is and how they match up against elite competition. And then you're back home at SoFi Stadium. Week 4 against the Colts. That's a winnable game. They're a team that's still building. Anthony Richardson, is it going to be him at QB? We saw the Rams win in Baltimore with the Puka Nacua walk-off catch a few years back. So like them in that one. And then week 5, it's the San Francisco 49ers, but at SoFi Stadium in prime time. We've seen this matchup for so many years, whether it be Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, whatever it may be, and it's at Levi's. This time around, an early October game. Week 5, it's at home on Prime Video, a Thursday night game, TNF game. Going to be a rivalry week, rivalry Jersey game, so that'll be exciting to see what they break out there. But you look at the start of the schedule, and you can count those wins. It's the National Football League. We know weeks 1 and 2 lie, so you can see teams go in there, get wins, and you just don't know how these teams are going to fare. But on paper, at least on paper, I think there's a real opportunity here to get off to a really solid start. Last year, the Rams, you had to go to Detroit to take on the Lions on the road, a tough environment. It's like a college football level atmosphere there at Ford Field. You lose a tight one there. You lose Puka Nacua in that one as well. And then the next week, you lost in blowout fashion to the Arizona Cardinals. This time around, you should get off to a 2-0 start. And then you can live with the loss against the Eagles on the road, but then right back on the saddle in week 4 against the Colts. So a 3-1 start is very, very doable. In fact, it should be expected with the way the schedule breaks. And then week 5, yes, we know the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan have had a ton of success against this Rams team, but this is different this time around. The Rams have kind of gotten over that last couple of seasons. That 49ers team, they are not the team they were a couple years ago. I see that they are favorites by some to win the division. They're not going to be a bad team. It's a rivalry game. It's going to be a lot of red in the building like there always is, but hopefully you need bigger escalators, and hopefully those bigger escalators will be for more 49ers fans that leave SoFi Stadium early, sad, just like they did in 2021 in the NFC Championship game. So the first month of the season, I really like for the Rams. I just really, really do. 3 of the first 5 at SoFi Stadium. Texans, they're going to be better, but still, what would you rather have? The Texans at home or Detroit on the road like last season? Then Titans are rebuilding. 49ers, you could almost say they're in flux as well. The Colts is kind of a wild card, but still, Anthony Richardson has not got a ton of breakthroughs there. I still think he's a young quarterback with a lot to prove. So I really, really like that start. And then next big takeaway, the primetime games. You've got to be kidding me. The Rams get just 4 primetime games. And by the way, the first one, we talked about it, San Francisco, Thursday Night Football. But how about week 12? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not going to sit here and say that I had inside information from NBC. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm D-Max Stradamus, like some of you have called me in the comments before. But I had this feeling it'd be the Buccaneers. I can't even explain it. I really can't. But I felt like the Buccaneers, it was just going to be a primetime game, because every now and then it's just a random primetime game that you didn't expect. And I got it on this one. It's who wants to go to Vegas tomorrow? I'm down with that for sure. But you get the Buccaneers week 12 Sunday Night Football, and that's the only Sunday Night Football game that you've got. And then in week 16, you've got the Seattle Seahawks, and that's another Thursday night game. It's on Prime Video, December 18th. The big storyline there is going to be Cooper Kupp versus old team. I hope that Cooper Kupp is healthy for that matchup. That's what I'm looking for. And of course, you might not want to root for that, but I will, of course, because I don't care if it makes him a better team and serves as tougher competition for the Rams. I think that's an intriguing storyline. I just kind of want to see what that feels like, what that looks like. And I just hope for his sake he can play in that game. But the Rams, they get the win. And then you got the Falcons. This one definitely is a surprising one for me. I think that of all the ones I looked at, I did not have this on my list as a potential primetime game. But week 17, Monday, December 29th, versus the Atlanta Falcons, Monday Night Football, 8:15 Eastern start, 5:15 in Los Angeles. And there you go. 4 primetime games. Of course, always the flex option. That's a possibility. But the shocker to me is the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Rams. Week 15 is not a primetime game. I'm shocked by that. I thought that was a lock to be a Sunday Night Football game, possibly a Monday Night Football game. That, I think, is an L for the league, because not only is there a lot of intrigue because of the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford angle, the fact that these two teams are both right there vying for the Super Bowl and they're contenders in the NFC, but also these teams just play classic games that go down to the wire. There's juice with this rivalry. I'm shocked that that's not a primetime game. I need to pick up the phone, talk to these executives. What are you doing? That one belongs. I mean, there's not enough popcorn in the world that can get you ready for a Lions-Rams matchup. So that's a surprise. The Ravens one, I'm a little less surprised about. I definitely think from a matchup standpoint on paper, the Ravens and the Rams being two of the better teams in the NFL. And also, they also played a really awesome game last season, one of the games of the year in the rain in Baltimore. So there was a good competitive factor there. That one comes as a surprise, but still use it as motivation. Everything should be used as fuel. And hopefully there's some flex opportunities later in the year. I mean, week 15, Lions, come on. I mean, look, every game is essential on national TV in some capacity as far as being on big broadcast TV. But still, I think they kind of missed the mark right there. I think you wanted to see a little better of a showing and a representation on Prime, especially when you brought back Stafford and you continued that and you brought in Devontae Adams, and you're definitely a Super Bowl contender. But hey, motivation and the best game I want to see on national TV that the Rams are in is the Super Bowl later in the year. But coming up next, more big takeaways on the Rams schedule release. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And a reminder that today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And for me, I'm looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder going into Denver to try to close out the series. You've got the Nuggets as 4.5-point underdogs tonight. So do you believe in the Joker or do you believe in SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, this year's MVP? So that is one I'm looking at. The Minnesota Timberwolves just closed it out against the Warriors yesterday, and they're now a plus 600 to get to the finals. The Thunder are a minus 140. So lots of basketball to watch, and you can win big. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those every listeners out there. You guys know who you are, watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. Appreciate the new viewers, the new listeners to the pod. Welcome to the Ramley. Welcome to the pod. And now's the perfect time to join because the season is fast approaching. The schedule is out. You're going to have camp soon, preseason soon. I can feel it. Football is kind of in the air in my mind a little bit. Maybe it's a little early, but it's right around the corner. So join that Every Listeners Club. It's where you don't miss any episodes that we drop. And then most importantly, you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Okay, let's pick it up in the second segment. Back to the schedule, back to big takeaways. Next takeaway is the Rams don't face any teams that are coming off bye weeks. So you've heard the phrase schedule loss. You've heard the phrase, okay, sometimes there's teams that are coming off tough games, and then you have to face a team, whether it be at home or on the road, coming off a bye, so that team has extra time to prepare. Sean McVay, great after bye weeks. Andy Reid, the greatest after bye weeks. Teams like that, coaches like that, take advantage of the extra preparation, schematically, the rest. They know how to utilize their players in the best way possible. Well, the Rams, they're not taking on any teams that are coming off a bye week. That is going to be a huge advantage. That will tell you that no team is going to be fully rested up, have an advantage from a rest standpoint against them. And in 2023, they went against 4 teams coming off a bye. Last year, they played 1 team coming off a bye, but in recent years, that's been some look at. I mean, they played 4 in 2023, which was wild. They still were able to make the playoffs, but having no team coming off a bye, it's rare and it is an advantage. Another thing, too, no 3-game road trips. That is a major advantage as well, especially for a West Coast team. Typically, you'll have some of those worked in there, but if you look at the schedule, weeks 2 and 3, you've got Tennessee and Philly, and then you got week 6 and 7, you're at Baltimore, so that you sandwich a game on the road there, and technically kind of there maybe you stay on the East Coast because it's at Baltimore, and then you got Jacksonville, and then you go to the bye week, so there might be some of that, but still, I mean, as far as having the team not have advantage, you're still benefiting heavily from that. And then you look at later down the line, weeks 14 and 16 and 17, they are other ones that are sandwiched. You've got week 13 at Carolina on Sunday, November 30th, and week 14 at Arizona. Those are back-to-back road games. And then later on, couple weeks later, you got another matchup where you're looking at weeks 16 and 17, and there you're at Seattle, but then you're coming home to play the Falcons. So in that world, yeah, there's the Falcons sandwiched in with the Seahawks and the Cardinals, but you're not looking at multiple road games, and you don't want to have the 3, and that's definitely a benefit there. So there is some sandwiches in there, but still, I mean, that is a major benefit. And like I said, a lot of teams, what they do, if you're already on the East Coast and you're a West Coast team and you're going to be going to London as they are for their Week 7 matchup against the Jaguars, yeah, maybe you do stay on the East Coast and it feels like you've been away from home. You're not sleeping in your own bed for 3 weeks, but still you're not having to face teams coming off those buys, and you're not having to go on 3 straight traditional road games. So that definitely is a major benefit as well. Next one is the division gauntlet. If the division is strong, is going to take place in the second half of the season. The Rams take on just one divisional opponent before week 9, and that is the San Francisco 49ers in week 5. But then after week 9, they're going to take on all 5 of their division opponents in the last 9 games. So that is where it's going to come down to, if you're going to win that division, where you're going to fare against those guys. The only non-NFC West games after week 9 are against the Buccaneers, Panthers, Lions, and Falcons. So if you look at the schedule after week 9, it is stacked with division opponents. You got week 10 at San Francisco, week 11 at Seattle, week 14 at Arizona, week 16 at Seattle, week 18 at Arizona. So lots of division opponents towards the later parts of this schedule. And I think it's kind of a good thing. You'll have a better idea about how teams are. I mean, just look at last year. You got blown out by the Cardinals in week 2, and then you won a close one against the Cardinals later. So you have a better idea about team strengths and weaknesses at that point. So I think it could ultimately serve as a little bit of advantage. So I'm not too worried about that for sure, but I do think that is it's going to be something to definitely look at later on in the year, especially if you get a bounce back year from the 49ers, if the Cardinals take a step in the right direction, if the Seahawks, who added Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp, are a team to be reckoned with. I mean, there's a chance that that's possible. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker III, Zach Charbonnet, they got a lot of talent up there. So that's going to be interesting to see, as well as just how much quality is in this division. And if there is a lot of quality, it could be a gauntlet towards the second half of the year. Another thing to look at is you have 5 early kickoffs. So West Coast teams, that's baked into it. You hate the 10 a.m. kickoffs. I know the players don't love it for sure. That's a part of the gig, right? That's a part of life as a West Coast team. And they have 5 early kickoffs. You got the Titans and Eagles in weeks 2 and 3. Then you got the Ravens on the road in week 6, the Panthers in week 13. And I think on top of just not being primetime games with the Eagles and the Ravens, it's also a shocker that it's not even in the later windows. I mean, I just can't believe that. And then you got the Jaguars in London, the Week 7 matchup. That's a 6:30 p.m. Pacific time start. Love waking up early, watching some Rams football. It's pretty awesome. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I wake up for the pregame shows. I wake up for the pregame shows at like 5, 6 anyway, especially during college football season, watch College Game Day. So I'm here for it. I don't sleep too much. So I'm definitely here for that. And then you can, and the best thing too, is there a better feeling in the world than like having your team, whether it be like win on Thursday, and then you get to enjoy all the rest of football, whether it's, hey, let's root against the division opponents. Let's just hate watch some players and teams we don't like for whatever reason. But that to me is a major benefit there. So I'm hoping that's the case. The Rams get the win. You're just sitting back enjoying football all day on that Sundays. And then you're going to have a bye week after that. And that's going to be key too, because you got some early kickoffs there to sort of manage. And look, I mean, it's not too wild. I think kind of where they're placed, they'll be up for them for sure. But that's definitely going to be significant. That's going to be significant and something they have to navigate. And Sean McVay's always done a really good job in navigating that on the West Coast and taking his team from the West Coast to the East Coast. So this team's, they're locked in. And look, they're tough opponents too with the Ravens and Eagles. But you can survive even if you lose those games. And I think the most important thing is you just maybe split there and you'll be okay. But coming up next, we have more big takeaways from the Rams schedule and a scheduling quirk that could definitely also be a major advantage for them in 2025. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, let's jump back into it. Now, a nice little quirk for the Rams that they could benefit from is, yes, you take on the Eagles and the Ravens, both games and both teams that if you had to list off teams that you wouldn't want to face in 2025 and specifically that you wouldn't want to face on the road, the Eagles and the Ravens would definitely be up there. But the good thing for the Rams is when you take on Philly and you take on Baltimore, it is early enough in the season where you're not worried about snow and you're not worried about extreme cold weather. You take on the Eagles in Week 3, September 21st. And by that time, hopefully it's still pretty decent weather. And then Week 6, it could certainly be a little chillier on October 12th, but you're not playing them in December. You're not playing them in late November. So I certainly think that if you have to play those guys on the road, that's when you're going to want to play them. That's certainly when you want to play them. And then I think, too, the good thing for the Eagles matchup as well is it's early on in the season. It's early when you're fresh and hopefully you're 100% healthy, and that's an advantage as well. So I think, look, those are the tougher games in the schedule. You hate them on the road, but at least hopefully you're not getting them in inclement weather for sure. And then another big takeaway is there was a rumor that the Rams were going to be playing on Thanksgiving. I saw that as the day moved along. But nope, no holiday games for the Rams. And I was hoping Thanksgiving. Look, Thanksgiving's fun. I mean, the Cowboys, Lions, teams like that. But it would have been pretty cool to see the Rams play their first game on Thanksgiving since 1975. A feature game for sure. And after last year not having the Lions on Thanksgiving, I think it was going to be a while. But still, I mean, just the fact that rumor was circulating, I don't even know where it originated from. It felt like it kind of had some legs, and maybe it did because the Buccaneers ultimately ended up on prime time with the Rams. But still, I mean, no holiday games for the Rams and no Thanksgiving for the Buccaneers. Next takeaway, the Week 8 bye. So I really like the bye where it is in Week 8. So last season in 2024, the Rams had a really early bye. It was a Week 6 bye, and it turned out to be okay because they really caught their stride in the second half of the season. That's when guys started to get healthy. Matthew Stafford really turned it on, the defense, and they went on a run. But a week 8 bye, I think, is ideal for the way the Rams schedule is in 2025 because you get it right after playing the Jaguars. You go to London to play that game, and that's taxing on players. The travel, you get family that go, you have to tour the sites. You're not going to just go to London and not go see the sites and do everything there is to do there. So that definitely is a very, very beneficial buy. And then after that break, then you get the Saints. And then the Saints, Derek Carr's retired. They're in a rebuild. So it's going to be beneficial to have the bye and then face an opponent that is not expected to be a contender, not expected to be one of the better teams in the NFC, let alone the entire league. So I like that because it's almost going to feel like you can never take an NFL team lightly for sure, but if there was a handful of teams that you didn't want to play, they're not on that schedule after the bye. There's a handful of teams you would want to play. It would be the Saints. And then I think that is kind of the perfect buy right there. It really is, because then you kind of set yourself up. You got those 5 division matchups in the second half of the season. So, like I said, that adds time to prepare and see game film and put yourself in best position to manage those games. So I like the week 8 bye. I like where it lays out. No disrespect to the Saints. Who Dat Nation, no disrespect. And every single year in the NFL, there's teams you think are going to be bad, and then they're good. Then there's teams you think are going to be good, and then they're bad. Who knows what's going to happen? There's always surprises. I mean, look at 2022 for your Los Angeles Rams. I mean, that's something that's a nightmare to kind of look back at in that failed Super Bowl defense year. But other big takeaway is, look, I mean, you look at this schedule. I mean, the Rams are a team that's projected universally to win double-digit games, and I really like the opportunity to not have to claw your way out of a hole, because we've seen that last couple of seasons. Last year, 1-4 start. I mean, this team is in prime position to get off and hit the ground running, and you're playing just 3 playoff teams in the first 8 games. I mean, this Rams team could get out in front and look really, really good, to the point where one thing that crosses my mind is the start, I think, is going to be so strong for the Rams this season that they are going to look for which pieces do emerge on the trade market to try to push themselves over the top, whether that be a player on defense, whether it be a skilled player. We don't know who's going to be available, but that is, I think, something to definitely consider for sure. And look, I mean, the negatives of the schedule, the 4:10 a.m. starts, going to London, those are certainly major obstacles for sure. But still, when you look at the schedule and you look at the Rams roster, there's not a stretch there that will say, this team might not make the playoffs. And nothing's guaranteed in the National Football League. I'll say it before, again, a million times on the show. But if this team stays fully healthy with Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams, this offensive line, excited to see Tyler Higbee back at full strength, Terrence Ferguson, we'll see what Colby Parkinson can do. Excited to see Chris Shula in year 2 with this defense. We'll see if and when they do ultimately add a cornerback to that group. But this team has the talent, the roster to win, and the schedule kind of aligns with that. So unless we see what happened in 2022, where it was a lot of unforeseen circumstances, injuries, players that didn't work out, don't really want to get into that nightmare fuel, but you could see a 12, 13 win season. It's not outside the realm of the possibilities when you look at the way the schedule lines out. I think this is a schedule that is definitely favorable for sure. And there's just little tiny quirks. I mean, you look at the final 5 weeks of the season, right? That's when we talk about the weather, on the bad side, on the good side, and everything in between. How about this? Last 5 weeks of the year, you only go outdoors once, and that's when you take on Seattle in December. on December 18th. And it's a Thursday night matchup. So we know Seattle can get cold. It can rain there. But, yeah, I mean, you got Cardinals, Lions, Falcons, Cardinals. So that's a lot of indoor games. We know that this Rams offense translates. So after they play the Panthers in Week 13, lots of little favorable matchups and details there. But we'll break down the schedule more tomorrow. I like this schedule for the Rams. I really, really do. Only thing I don't like is network executives, what are you doing? We need more Rams on national TV. Are you kidding me? Let's flex some games in. Let's use it as fuel. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.